Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I am Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome to episode 99. It is one of our favourite podcasts of the year. It's our year in review, and we're going to talk about 2024, even though we're quite a bit way into 2025 at the moment. But before we get into that, while we have a captive audience, I just thought I would ask if you have a question that you would like to ask us, feel free to send it in via the socials or email realtrailtalk@gmail.com, because keen and intelligent listeners will notice that we're coming up to our 100th episode. So
yeah, finally. It's sort of been a bit of a slower go in the last couple of years.
I remember talking to Aaron about this in 2019, and I'll tell the full story next episode. I'm like, that was, it's 5.5 years ago that we were coming up to our 100th, and we finally got here.
Yeah, I think I'd say that we're certainly picking up a bit again. So we'll certainly be at a bit of a faster pace in that's our intention anyway. We'll see how we stick to the New Year's resolution.
Yeah. So for the 100th, we'll probably do like a retrospective about what it's been like over the last 7-8 years.
Really? That long?
I think 2017 maybe. I have to go back and look. And then we'll do a big Q&A with all your questions, and even if you just want to send in a comment or a hi, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So 2024, I guess we'll cheers to a good year of hiking, as always. How did you start your 2024, Donovan?
Oh, really crap, Mark. In the previous episode, I mentioned I was meant to be in Kosciuszko. So I was meant to do the Kayandra to Kosciuszko walk then. And like a week or two before, I woke up with just agonizing pain, couldn't move my foot properly, and I was diagnosed with Achilles tendinopathy. So I started the year pretty sad about that, but did a lot of cycling. So one of the things that I realized was that the Achilles tendinopathy didn't hurt so much on a bike.
Yeah.
So I was out doing a lot of riding. My brother-in-law had come down, so we did some riding in Denmark. So we actually shot what will possibly be an episode of a future season, like a really long time ago. And I was just basically, it was such an atrociously hot summer. So I was basically at 9:00 at night every night. We'd go through the routine of putting Miles to bed, and then by about 10:00, I'd be out riding, and I did that most nights of the summer.
Yeah, I remember just recently, because I've gotten back into cycling, you're like, do you want to join me for some rides? I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't mind going night riding. You're like, how does 10:00 sound to you? I'm like, nope. I would never get to sleep if I did that.
So mine was pretty low key because of that, which I think was quite the opposite of yours.
I mean, the start was quite adventurous. Literally woke up on New Year's Day excited in a little inn in the middle of Launceston, and I was getting picked up to go do the overland track. So that was just, a trip. I think I mentioned this in the last year's in review episode, but I wanted to do this for a while and just hadn't got around to doing the whole booking system in July and sorting it out. So finally here, and a fantastic week to start 2024 on the overland track. Met some amazing people, got some great weather. I think it rained. I mean, if you don't include post-hike, it rained once, and unfortunately we were coming down Mount Oakley when that happened, but that was still a fun experience. So got all the fantastic photos from the overland and thoroughly enjoyed that trip. I mean, it is one of the most hyped up multi-day walks in Australia, and it deserves every bit of hype, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, so I think we had a few requests from people to redo the overland track episode, because while I was doing all the posts, are you going to do an episode? I'm like, well, we've already done one. It was quite early on, but we've got Steve from the Woodman Track Foundation is literally on the trail at the moment, or on the track. So maybe we'll do an updated version where we can talk about the new facilities and also his perspective about taking so long between overlands.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we discussed recently that I think 4 of the huts that I stayed at are no longer the huts. So
That's what I was like reading your posts. I'm like, oh, I won't be staying here. Like, there's no need to rush to a hut because, you know, the new ones can accommodate 35. So,
yeah,
that was a bit of a relief.
yeah. But it's kind of funny, you know, that wasn't that long ago, but it sounds like I'm like an old man hiker who like did it in the 70s and the huts all changed.
Back in my day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the first 7 days of the year, and then literally woke up in the edge of Lake Sinclair on Little Beach at Echo Point, and then I was flying home and in my bed that night. So that was kind of
wow. I forgot about, like, it was such a whirlwind.
Yeah, like up at 4:30 to photograph a beautiful sunrise, and then home that same day, which is not how I usually do it. I usually give myself a bit of time to decompress. But I just, like, this was forced leave over Christmas, and I just didn't have any up my sleeve.
Yeah.
So that kind of forced my hand. Yeah. Apart from that, not much for the summer because, as you mentioned, it was quite a scorcher. I think the only other thing I did was I took my eldest niece out to go on a surfing lesson at Redgate. So I was kind of on the Cape to Cape.
Yeah.
And then late Feb, I actually got a very, very cool day, even though it was quite humid. And I accompanied Steve from the Willman track out to the Nyan Biddy, which is the bit that loops or connects up Swamp Oak and Chedora campsites to form the 3-day loop.
Yeah.
So he was going out to do his track notes for the guidebook and everything. So I thought, asked, can I please join? Because we're now neighbours. And he's like, yep, cool, let's do that. So I got the privileged access of, behind the scenes DRA permit access to Chedora, so we could just walk it in one day.
Yeah, awesome.
And that's, I have mixed feelings about that trail because the sections where they've made an effort to put in the single trail, it's fantastic. And from what I understand, that was mostly the support volunteers from the bib doing an amazing job. But then you cross over the highway going towards Swamp Oak, and it's just, there's an existing road, stick up some markers, and that was it. So, I mean, we're kind of starved of trails in WA, so you kind of, whatever you're given is acceptable, but at the same time, like, they've written all these documents about, best practice for trail building. Yeah. And they just go and stick markers up on a vehicle track.
Yeah. It's, it's a joke that I've mentioned to a few people of like, I think they're spending $450 million in New South Wales and park improvements, most of that on trails. And we're like, here's some markers on a vehicle track, world class.
Or, we've got a big budget in the millions, but that's going towards a trailhead and some toilets and a car park, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
That was summer, and then we kind of moved into autumn, which was basically an extension of summer. I remember it didn't get out of the low 30s as a maximum temperature until late May.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching the weather app for the predicted rain in the coming weeks, and it'd be 1 to 5 mils on this day, then it'd disappear. And it just didn't rain for 7 months, and that was quite shocking to see. Yeah.
And so at the end of that period, I put in my garden as well, and so it was sort of this, having to nurse this thing that I put in the end of February, so the end of summer. And that was a real challenge. That time was pretty rough, March. I mean, March, I think people need to remember that in WA, there's a bit of an amnesia because we think of March as autumn, but it's really just another month of summer.
Yeah, it is one of the hottest months. But you occasionally get those days where it's just mid-20s for, a few days, but we just didn't get that.
Yeah. During this time, actually, I did do, so I think it was in March, I did Whistlepipe Gully. I sent a photo to you as I did it, and it was just the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen. Just the Whistlepipe Gully runs dry in summer. I mean, it's due to some kind of magic. It seems to last longer than most trails because there's some kind of regulated flow to the water. But normally it does run dry at some point, and this was so dry that it was just dead.
Yeah.
There's just plants dead.
Because when I went on my last book trip, that was October, and from then on, I don't think it really rained in Perth at all.
Yeah.
And just like the heat stress in the Darling Scarp was just like incredibly visible. Like, yeah, those photos you sent, not normal. And it was quite scary to think, like, we have a couple more of those.
Yeah.
And then it starts going further and further in. And yeah, like, that, could signal the collapse of an entire forest in some areas.
Yeah, and this is, these are species that are adapted to a dry summer, adapted to, to Mediterranean climate, and yet they were suffering. So that was great.
Yeah, I mean, and much like you, I bought a house at the end of last year the end of 2023, sorry, and was trying to put in a garden and just waiting for the rains, out there watering it by hand the whole time. Had a few difficulties with discovering the history of the place, so to speak, because we think there's an original cottage in Hilton that the government then bought for state housing, and there must have been some requirement that it had to have a garage of some variety. So they put it almost towards the back of the property and then had a big driveway going through it, and then they'd concreted under where the brick driveway was. So I'm like trying to plant or like dig holes for trees, and then just dunk. I'm like, oh no. And this happened a couple of times, so I was off to Kennards to get a jackhammer.
Yep.
Trying to rip up concrete and move that away, and yeah, that was fun. But it's all worth it in the end.
Of course, yeah.
And they're kind of like, oh, I now understand why you put like raised veggie beds there, like the previous owner. But yeah, I mean, it's all worth it. And yeah, it's been fun planting everything and going to nurseries and Kings Park sales and putting it all together and watching it grow.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, got a lot of comments. We did the community Halloween thing, so we're sitting out the front, and quite a lot of people came by and like, oh, I'd really love to see what you've done with the place, and it's been great watching. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to get that kind of validation. Yeah.
So apart from keeping out of the heat, you also went to New South Wales / ACT for a bit of hiking, didn't you?
Yeah, so first to dust off the hiking legs, I went to Tassie. I had to go to Melbourne for.
That's right. Sorry, yep.
That's okay. No, I had to go to Melbourne for work, and I said, "How about you fly me to Hobart, and then I'll pay for my flight from Hobart to Melbourne?" They said, "Yeah, sure." It's like basically no cost difference to them. So I lined it up, got there, did the Freycinet circuit, which was, that's been on my bucket list for a long time. We were meant to do it in 2022 when COVID, the Omicron outbreak meant that the borders closed like days before we were meant to leave. So yeah, it was a bit of sort of unfinished business from that. Got to do that as an overnight, and that was fantastic. I think the east coast of Tassie is a bit different to the kind of crazily wet rainforest of the southwest, and also the alpine of the Cradle Plateau, but just as good as any of those other great walks that they have there. And the weather was less than perfect. Like, it was a bit rainy and cloudy, but I still loved it. And it was good because it's quite a big climb, because I think it's like 600-meter climb in the day from sea level, and it's it's pretty steep. And I was this is my first time getting doing a big walk after so I felt pretty good after that about that. And then not long after that, I had Cayandra to Kosciuszko, which finally got to do, and had terrible weather towards the end of that as well, but still had fun. Yeah, so
I feel like you need to go hiking with me a bit more, so we get good weather and good luck.
So I've had a lot of excellent luck in the long term. So I take it with as look, I've had many hikes I've done where the weather's been outstanding. So I had a slightly subpar weather on these trails. It is what it is. Your luck comes around to you eventually. Yeah. How about you? What did you get up to in autumn?
So autumn marked the start of many, many, many trips out to the Kingdom of Pi. So this was my 2024 in a nutshell. Is I'd wanted to get the Kingdom of Pi realigned off Wilshusen Road. And this is something, I'd wanted to do since I first took over the section. I'm like, really? Like, you're giving me 6 odd Ks of vehicle track to wander along, and like, what's out there? So I'd had the conversation with one of the main support volunteers for the bib track. And he's like, look, get the ball rolling and start doing a lot of your own recon to see where it could go. So that kind of was just like, great. And because I only really wanted to do the Wilshusen Road bit, but he's like, while you're out there, just do the whole hog, like do the whole section. And, if it gets thrown back, it gets thrown back, but at least we've done the work. So a lot of these early trips in autumn, I think I went out March, April and May, was trying to suss out, do the old Dave Osborne off-track hiking, like looking at maps and satellite images and being like, where could I go? What makes sense? And eventually I've settled on a route that it's so much better. And it's like, it's not even marked like a proper trail. Like, I've marked it out GPS wise and with a few flags, but like, I know it now, and I can't wait for something to happen in that area, because it's such a different walk, and you see so many different things than just walking down Wilshusen Road. And it was good to because I'd have these conversations with Mark, the guy from the bib track, and he's like, well, why are you taking it there? And like, shouldn't we go here? And like, there's some flora concerns here. I'm like, just come out with me and I'll show you. And we went out there, and he's just like, oh yeah, I understand completely why you're going in this direction. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's been fun. And like, I took my sister out there later in the year to kind of show her, and I just can't wait to share it with the world once, or if and when it gets approved and can start building it.
Yes, hopefully done by the time that I take Miles out to do that section, when we do my planned sectional end-to-end with Miles.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping the next couple of years, maybe not construction this year, but at least like getting formal approval this year and then construction next year.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is through open woodland, so you don't really need to do much.
Yeah.
It's not like you're, removing trees and plants all over the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that should provide a much better walking experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm quite excited about that, and it was just so much fun going out there pretty much every month, and you see the changing landscapes. I saw so many orchids I'd not seen before out there, because I was there every month, and like, you could go to a spot and you'd be like, well, I saw that there, and a few weeks later it's not there and something else is there. It was a fun year. But yeah, just waiting for that heat to finally subside.
Yeah.
Which brings us on to winter. Did you have a busy winter?
Not really. So originally I was meant to go to Queensland. And what kind of happened was, when I did Kayanta to Kosciuszko, was like, it really sucked being away from home. And I really didn't want to go so soon after that trip, because it would have just been like, a couple of months later to have gone to Queensland. And also, it wasn't the hike I originally wanted to do. I was compromising, and it was just like, well, you're only doing it because you have this flight to Queensland, and it's not the actual one you want to do. So why are you going? And in that discussion, I decided to extend my stay at the end of the year and do a longer 2.5 weeks in New Zealand, because it's like, well, you're going to be away from the family anyway. It's better to have like one longer separation rather than heaps of them.
Yeah.
So I basically just pulled a pin on that and did a lot of just smaller, low-key stuff in Perth. Like, just taking Miles to places that I know he will enjoy. So, for example, we did Pierce Gully, and he gets to play in the water. I did a lot of bike riding. So in May, I bought a bike seat, so that, because we had bought a bike seat for Miles that was sort of behind the rider.
Yeah.
But the problem with that was that he couldn't see what was happening, and also you couldn't see him.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't fit on any of my electric on either electric bike. So it was like whoever had the acoustic bike had to like suffer with
with a child.
with a child behind you. So like like going up a hill is hard enough on a I'm now used to the electric power. It was even worse when you have like someone weighing you down behind. So I bought a seat that could go in the front, and that was a game changer. We did a lot of riding together, and we still do a lot. Like at least a few times a week we'll go out somewhere. And also, I think last year I went to Kings Park at least 30 times. And so throughout the winter and like through autumn and winter, it was sort of like going every few weeks and really just seeing the seasons change. That was a really great experience. And mainly it was because Miles and I would ride into Kings Park and just have a bit of fun, go to the playground. But it's now got to the point where he just loves it so much that we'll just go for a walk around, and that's enough fun for him. Yeah. So we did a lot of that, did a lot of, part of what I wanted with going to the vlog rather than the blog was one of the things that frustrated me towards the end was doing a trail for the sake of doing it that was not that great. Whereas just doing Eagle View or Kitty's Gorge is more enjoyable. So I, repeated Kitty's Gorge, did Eagle View, did Little Eagle View, which was actually better than I expected. We actually really enjoyed Little Eagle View. Yeah. And yeah, that was basically the winter. Was a lot of repeating the classics and just having a bit of fun with that. How about you?
So I started winter. The rains had finally come. I think it was the first week of June. So I thought I'll go out to 2J because I was like, there's trails out there. Hike West were doing a hiking festival out there with conjunction with one of the trail running events. Yep. So I went out there and did a couple of trails there, and I really wanted to see the winter spider orchid. Okay. Because that has become a passion of mine over the last few years is, trying to see as many wildflowers and orchids as I can. And that being an element to walking and hiking that I didn't necessarily, I appreciated before, but wasn't quite as involved as I am now. So after a couple of trails, I was a little disappointed. So I was like, I know exactly where they are. So I drove out to that spot. And then, just lots of little trails as well. So, just getting out there with friends. We did the Armadale Settlers Common hike, which is one I've been meaning to do for ages, but I didn't want to just go out there, just do that one trail. Yeah. So I took friends out there and made a morning out of it. And then, just lots of trips to the Kingdom of Pi. And as part of that, trying to then add in more trails on the way. So trying to link up, like going through Mandurah instead of just straight down Forest Highway. Yeah. So I did Mariner's Cove, which is a fun little like wetlandsy type walk, and Island Point Reserve, which is I visited maybe 4 or 5 times because it's just off Old Coast Road if you go the other way. And like it's a haven for wildflowers and orchids and bird life as well. It's just a good mix of like that peppermint forest and then the inlet, the estuary. And so that became habit of I'm going down to do maintenance or mapping of the new trails. So I'll go down Friday afternoon, stay with the family in Bunbury, and then go out to do maintenance. So that was good fun doing that. And then July, we did our annual Escape the Perth Winter. Yeah. And we went up to Kalbarri, which was my first time visiting. But unfortunately, Kalbarri had received quite a wet autumn and winter. So it was kind of a blessing and a curse because Z Bend was closed the entire time I was there. Plus on the way back, so I also went up to the Kennedy Range. So I haven't done Z Bend, but that's an excuse to go back. But then doing the loop walk was epic because I wouldn't have thought there'd be a million waterfalls flowing through there, but there was. And like,
there normally isn't.
Yeah. So like, I think I put it in the blog post. I'm like, don't expect this. Like if you visit, even if it's the dead of winter and it's rained, like, it was just crazy. Yeah. And then doing all the other, like the coastal walks, like Mushroom Rock and the Bergerda Trail was, pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Kalbarri's, it's a small town, but it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, as far as getting sort of an outback kind of experience, although technically it's not the outback, the fact that it's so close to Perth, really, I mean, we're saying, it's WA close.
Yeah, it's you can drive there in a day. That's close.
Yeah. So it's, to me, I think that's a real plus, because you get such a different feel there, and the wildflowers there are also excellent.
And I also ticked off a bucket list goal of mine, which was to visit the Utamanabrollis.
Oh yeah, yep.
So yeah, originally I'd planned to do this, like stay an extra night in Geraldton on the way back and do the tour from there. And then I was like, hang on, like surely I could do a flight from Kalbarri, and yes, you can. So roped in Karis's aunt to accompany me, and we were the only people on the tour. So we had the whole island to ourselves. It was only 18 degrees. I'm like, I really, really want to go snorkeling. It was in the water for about an hour, and by the end I was like blue and shivering, but I'm like, nope, you are going to enjoy this. And yeah, it's a really cool spot. Like it's the lower edge of like the coral reef system from Ningaloo. And yeah, just a really unique place in terms of history and like just wildlife as well.
Yeah.
So that was good fun. And then, as I mentioned, I tacked on a few days to go up to the Kennedy Range. I thought, if we've driven all this way, what's another 800 odd kilometers?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm kind of kicking myself because like the way I was looking at Google Maps was entirely wrong. I didn't realize Mount Augusta was only 250 k's away. The way I was looking at Google Maps, it was another half day to get there.
Yeah, it's not that far.
It's not, because the way I was doing it is you type in Kennedy Range National Park, and Google would tell you to go like approach from the northwest.
Yeah.
And then so when I was doing that to Mount Augustus, it was showing me like 6 hours. I'm like, well, that's another like at least 3 days.
Yeah.
When in reality, from Gascoyne Junction, it's not terribly far.
And I'll tell you what, it's also not that long. Because they are saying that you're going on gravel at a really slow speed, and you can easily drive faster than the speed that they're saying without it being dangerous.
I mean, even like the 250 Ks, I think it was, would have taken me like 4 hours probably. Like the road, but that was the thing, is because it'd been so wet.
Yeah,
I wasn't entirely sure about the roads were like I was still calling the Shire the day before I left to go up to the Kennedy Range, like saying like, are you sure the roads are okay? Because I don't want to drive all that way and they'd be washed out. But in the end, it was fine. And yeah, Kennedy Range, I had 2 nights. Well, technically 2 nights, 1 full day of hiking. And then I got through the 6 trails there that I did, and I was finishing up the 5th one and packing all my gear up to do the escarpment trail, which takes you up to the top of the range. And the campground host for the park came over and introduced himself. And I quickly realised, oh no, like he's going to ask for fees, and I forgot to take cash out. And in my mind, it was also that thing with Peak Charles National Park where there's no park entry fee and camping is free at Peak Charles. And because there was no park entry fee at Kennedy Range, my brain assumed that was the case as well at Kennedy Range. So, yeah, I mean, let's just say it wasn't the best customer experience. He immediately jumped to, you're going to have to leave the national park. And I was in such shock. I'm just like, right, you've clearly made up your mind that you're the big boss around here and what goes. So I was like, fine. Let him finish talking. I'm like, I will do my last hike and I will get out of your hair. And so I just went and camped just outside the national park border.
Yeah.
Hoping that my tent wouldn't be crushed by a cow in the middle of the night.
And there's a lot of cows out there.
There's a lot of cows out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't let that ruin the experience because something was up with him, and I think as a bit of karma and payback, as I was leaving, like 4 boomers with their like giant caravans came in, and the campsite was all pretty full, so he would have had to have dealt with that.
Nice.
But yeah, like Kennedy Range is quite an underrated. Like you don't hear it mentioned a whole lot. in WA, but it's a really cool spot for hiking.
Yeah, I feel like it's sort of, it looks like those sort of like Utah, like sort of mesas that you see in like America. It's not as big, but you know, you get that experience, which is cool.
Yeah, and like a little bit of Carragini thrown in as well with the gorge hiking, but it's just obviously not as wet or as deep. But yeah, really cool place, and yeah, I'd recommend if you've got the time and you don't mind driving, it's well worth a visit.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, winter was actually quite quite a busy time for me. So I got back and I got my eyes lasered finally. So no more glasses for me. But that also put me out of action for a few weeks. Just, healing, and I couldn't get them wet. And they were easily irritated and dry. So I finally got out to Wongan Hills after a few weeks because I was like, I need to get out and see what's going on, and hopefully my orchid spotting abilities have improved quite a lot.
With your eyesight increase?
My eyesight increase, and they did, because I did see a lot of orchids that day. But yeah, Wongan Hill's another spot that just has a lot of really cool hiking. Like there's like the trails there. There's at least one like ultra fantastic one, which is Mount Matilda.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And then there's just a lot where it's just, here's, a granite outcrop and we're going to take you on a loop, or a nature reserve. And like the main reason I was there was wildflowers and orchids. So I don't need an amazing trail, but it's nice to have the options just to walk around various places.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was a really, really cool day. And I'm riding those up at the moment and just reveling in being back in that moment.
Yeah.
And then, just like little trips. So went up to Bald Park again with friends. Timberline Trail, which is one that I've been wanting to do for ages. So I wanted to do this with my dad as well. So I said, Dad, I've picked a date in August. We're going to do this. And then it just rained a lot during that week and on that day. And because my dad's only got it's a half commuter, half like, I don't know what you'd call it, like a city bike. So it's got wide-ish tyres, but not off-road tyres.
Yeah.
So he made the decision the previous night to be like, I'm not going to join you. And then I got out there and, I was pedaling through crank-deep puddles a lot of the time. I'm like, Dad would have killed me if he'd come on this.
Yeah.
But that was such good fun. I reckon that, with dual-use trails where it's mainly set up for bikes, I reckon that would be an almost as enjoyable hike as it is a bike.
I don't know about that, because I feel like the way it's so like, I mean, I have a very strong dislike for that scenery on foot.
Yeah, I guess the bit where it shares with the Mundabiddy wouldn't be great. But if you're talking from Nannup to Sleeper Hewers Hut, or even Barrabutt Pool.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not Barrabutt Pool. What's the Cambrai siding where it finishes? That as a walk would be fantastic. Because there's really limited use of vehicle tracks. And when you are on them, they're not vehicle tracks. They're kind of old rail form.
There's a lot of burnt jarrah, Mark. I would be very frustrated by...
Did you see my photo? That's not that burnt.
It's enough burnt that I'd be frustrated. Whereas on a bike, I felt it was, like on a bike, I think it's a fantastic trail, but I think I would be irritated by, I'd fixate on the burnt jarrah that I could see that I was forced to have to look at for several minutes, and that would frustrate me.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to test that out this year. I think I might take my niece out to that trail and do it as a hike. So I'll report back next year.
Yeah.
That was winter. That was quite a busy winter after not doing much in autumn. So it felt good to be out and in the cold and the rain.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So moving on to spring. How was your spring?
So spring, I did a few training hikes leading up to the New Zealand trip. So I brought Justin and Peter out to Monadnock. So we did a day hike to Monadnocks. We did Kitty's Gorge, which was really good. We did that just one way. And then the big thing for this season was we did Alyssa, Miles, and I went for a family holiday, and we went to the Southern Forests.
Yep.
And I did a series of day hikes there. Some I did with Alyssa and Miles, some I did by myself. But it was a fantastic trip. You know, I think I've done pretty much all of these hikes before, but it was just great to be out there and doing them again. I think the scenery in that area is really special. And being able to take Miles to these places as well was really good. So he enjoyed the experience. I really, really, really enjoyed the experience. So I did one of the ones that I did that have always thought was a great trail was the Warren River Loop.
Yeah. And
I remembered it being really good, and it was even better than I remembered it. It was just so good. Just the quality of that walk is outstanding.
I found that with WA trails as well. Like you've done them early on for like the blog.
Yeah.
And then you kind of wonder in your head, like, was I just building that up because it was one of the first like, wow, amazing trails I've done? And then you go back and you're like, nope, that was actually really good quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was actually just like the whole time, you know, like smiling at how fantastic that trail was.
Did you hug a carry?
Yes, I believe I did hug a carry. And, you know, like all the hikes there were really fantastic. I think as a day hiking destination, it's probably one of the best areas, that region, Southern Forests. And it was nice to, you know, we did some of the touristy ones, like, you know, the treetop walk. And, yeah, it was just a really fantastic trip. And these will be coming out. There's the first lot of stuff for this year on the channel. But, yeah, it was overall a wonderful holiday. I think a really good one to do as a family-friendly trip. Because the hikes are not super difficult. If you're walking with a kid on a backpack, it's not that bad. There's the tourist railway, which we took Miles on, the tramway into the Cascades.
Don't talk to me about that railway.
Really? Why not?
Oh, it was when I was writing the first book, like just as I was about to submit the manuscript and like send it off to the printers, they announced that it was closing. So I was like rewriting all of that bit to like the walk variations and like getting there and stuff. And then the book got released, and then they announced it was over.
Yeah. And I have to say, one that I hadn't actually done as itself, as that trail, which I actually really enjoyed, was the Gloucester Tree to the Cascades walk, which I kind of had done because the Bibbleman track does that. Yeah. But it was fun doing it as just that. And so, like, Alyssa went to pick us up because we needed a car shuffle. So, like, Alyssa, can you pick us up? And Miles and I did that together, and that was a lot of fun. It's pretty easy because it's on an old rail trail, basically. Yeah. But that was, it was a good experience. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So definitely highly recommend that people, you know, I think as a day walking destination, the Great Southern is fantastic. Yeah. How about you?
Spring was pretty quiet for me, so a lot of it was just Kingdom of Pie maintenance, whereas because like peak wildflower season and orchid season, so I do an annual flora survey anyway, so this was I'd been looking forward to this all year. And then just like a random trip, which seemed to be the theme of the year, is just pick a destination and just spend the whole day there. So one that I'd looked at doing, and I really wanted to camp overnight and make it like a thing with friends, but the timing never worked out. So I thought I'll just go out to Dryandra just for the day and just hike some of the trails I hadn't hiked out there, and maybe I'd see a wombat. Sorry, not a wombat, a numbat. And just, it was still peak orchid season, so that was, quite fun. And, the trails in Dryandra, just lots of variety, but also, like, there's a little bit of a challenge to them. Like, there's the Lol Grey Trail, which is, a significant length, and some of the other ones like the Woylie Walk and the Wandoo Walk are large enough that you don't feel like it's like just a short little jaunt through the forest. Like there's a bit of meat to them. Didn't see any spider orchids, which was a bit annoying. I'd seen every other kind of orchid. I'm like, I just want to see a spider orchid. So that was a really fun day, and then joined you and Peter, and
Yeah.
not Justin
Yeah,
and
so
Bonnie.
I actually realized, I was like, oh, I didn't mention, that we did, you and I think, considering we have a podcast together, don't hike together that often. And we did a hike together doing...
Perth Hills Discovery Centre to Mount Dale.
Yeah. And it was hot. It was so terribly hot.
Well, to defend Bonnie and I, we were quite a way behind you the whole time because we were busy looking for wildflowers and orchids, but it wasn't that hot.
The second day...
Second day was hot. Walking up Mount Dale was a bit of a stretch.
That was awful. I think I've sworn off hiking in October in the Perth Hills after that.
I mean, yeah, that wasn't too bad. Because I'd not hiked in that direction before. So those two I'd always done kind of Mount Dale to Perth Hills or done like out and backs to Helena, but I'd not done Helena to Woolwich in that direction. So it was almost like a new trail to me, like getting to a certain point and that massive hill, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 Ks out of Helena. I'm like, I have no memory of this place. So that was good fun. And yeah, it was interesting seeing the new alignment that they've got around Helena and how that area's kind of bounced back after the fires.
Yeah, because I hadn't done... So I did that with my dad the year before. But before that, I hadn't done this section after the fire because I was like, I'm not going back to that area. Yeah, I do agree with you that it's bounced back a lot. And also, I think that this is a really good test, this section, because I think in this direction in particular, more so than the other way, is a real challenging section.
There's a couple of hills in there, but I was looking at my Strava afterwards. I'm like, the hill was only about 120 meters in vertical.
But it feels like really hard.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is. Maybe because it's a bit open and you can see like the gradient.
Yeah.
But even the gradients weren't that big. It was just it just feels like a bigger hill than it is.
Yeah. I think it also the laterite gravel does make it a more challenging hike than if it was other
2 steps up, like half a step back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that was a fun trip. Good to spend time with, hiking with you and Bonnie, who we don't spend a whole lot of time to. Like, we're on the chat pretty much every day, but in person kind of, not so much. And then after that, a couple of weeks after that, I did the new Ducanelli to Harvey Quindanning realignment.
Yep.
So joining the Steve again while he was doing his track notes. So we stayed overnight. It was actually quite funny because, Steve being the lead guide of the Bibbulmun track, like he's a bit of a celebrity. And there was a couple of German hikers who were staying at Ducanelli that night. And it just so happened that the Bibbulmun magazine in the box was the one with Steve doing his thing at the start of the 25th anniversary walk.
Yeah.
And the German guy was really funny. He's just like, oh, it's you.
Nice.
So that was fun. And like, you know how terrible that road walking is along the Murray River after the suspension bridge.
Well, very famously, there's that photo that I took of Alyssa in like knee-deep
puddles.
Like, yeah.
So I can safely say the realignment is a lot better, and it takes you like way away from there. It's not just like running parallel to it. Like you go a lot further west to cross Harvey Quindanning Road than you used to. But unfortunately, DBCA have taken the opportunity to be like, oh, there's access and trails there now. We'll just scorch the entire thing.
Yeah.
So that was disappointing to see. But the bits that weren't burnt and were all single trail were just like, this is what the Bib could be. And I would love to see a lot more of this happening. And I think it will eventually. Like they're doing targeted realignments in areas. So, yeah. A much better user experience leaving Ducanelli, and it's pretty good. I just hope that the forest recovers from the hot fires, because it went all the way up to the canopy.
Yeah, okay.
And also you don't walk under the conveyor belt anymore. You walk over the top of it.
Oh, cool.
Which is kind of, I don't know, you get to see it a bit more.
You get to really appreciate the mining impacts.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's like because I can hear it from my section, but when we went there and we were doing the section south of the conveyor, they must have turned it off for whatever reason. And we're like, oh, this is really peaceful and quiet, and then it turned back on, and we're like, oh. Great, because you actually have to hike pretty much parallel with it for a lot longer to get back to the alignment.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is a negative, but yeah, I mean,
Yep.
hopefully you have some headphones for that.
I don't, because I don't hike with headphones. I just suffer the annoyance.
Yeah. Yeah. And apart from some more maintenance trips, that was my 2024. So I'll leave you to finish it off with the rest of your 2024 and your trip to New Zealand.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I was originally going to go to Queensland in winter, and I decided that I was going to do 2.5 weeks in New Zealand. So in the lead up, whatever time I had, I'd just get out there and do some hikes. So Mark kind of mentioned earlier that Justin didn't join me on this hike that we did in the Perth Hills, and that was because he injured his toe in this terrible manner. Like he literally, I don't know how this happened, but when you stub your toe, you don't fracture the toe. And literally, he fractured his toe.
He was so apologetic too, because he drove out to the start point. He's just like, Donovan, I'm not faking it. This is a thing I did.
Yeah. So he and I did this other training hike. So we went from Lights Beach and we did a loop through William Bay, and I realized he'd never been to the area before. So he was just like, what is this? He was just completely just amazed by where we had been. So we went through from Lights Beach to Greens Pool. And then from Greens Pool, we went to Mazzaletti and then up onto the Bibbulmun and then camped overnight at William Bay campsite. We were the only people there.
Yeah.
And then the next day we went back to Lights Beach, but then continued on along the Bib over Mount Hallowell and then to the car park, the correct car park on the Bibbulmun track. Yeah,
not the Bibbly Man track.
The Sheila Hill car park. Yeah. So he was like, having never been to this part of Western Australia, was like, he could not believe how good it was, because he's like, I'm never hiking in the Perth Hills ever again, because the quality of the scenery just absolutely blew him away.
I don't know, you substitute the rock formations on Mount Halliwell with the ones, the really large ones as you're going down that feeder creek into Pierce Brook.
Yeah.
Sort of similar, you put some carry trees in there, it could be the same.
I agree. I think that just from his experience, he's not seen the best parts of the Perth Hills. And I think a lot of what makes the Perth Hills really quite spectacular is the wildflowers. And I don't think until you really understand that, you don't really see the things that are spectacular about it in a lot of ways. And the granite, definitely, I agree with you. The granite formations are really quite spectacular. But clearly, having done I realized that I'd taken him to the Monadnocks multiple times, because in 2004 when we first
was he on that trip?
He was on that trip. So the 2004 trip when we did section of the Bibbulmun from Sullivan Rock to Kalamunda, he was on that hike, and he was like, I've done this section of, and also I think we did a training hike with Peter that was separate to me, and it was Monadnocks. He's like, I've only hiked Monadnocks.
I mean, it's not the worst place to go hiking, but yeah, it's
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the fact that he's just done the same one again and again, he was like, that's what he's seen.
Yeah, he's like, it must be, if this is the best section, they're just going to every single time, the rest must be pretty terrible.
Exactly. So, yeah, he was just blown away. And I think he wants to go back and do more hiking in that area. So I think I've awoken an interest in the Great Southern region for him.
Yeah.
But the big thing that we did at the end of the year was going to New Zealand, and I finally got to do the Traverse Sabine, which is a hike that has been on my list for years and years. So I don't know what it was. I think I saw photos of it online, because it's not one of the great walks, but the guidebook that I have literally says you know, it's not a great walk, capital G, great walk, but it could very well be a great walk based on the quality of it. So that's in Nelson Lakes region in the South Island. It's the top of the northern end of the Southern Alps. And this is like, certainly one of the best walks I've done. The scenery was outstanding. The walking was great. And so I finished 2024 with the first 4 days were in 2024 on the Traverse Sabine. And it was, if you like mountains and you like forest scenery, it's just like every day you wake up and it's like, oh, look at all these mountains everywhere around me. And the quality of the hiking was really good. The trail is really good. The campsites and huts are really good. The one downside is it shares the trail with the Te Araroa. And I'm saying it terribly, like this. When you hear people say it correctly, you're like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's like a fluid, just like almost one word kind of pronunciation.
When they say it, like there was like a Maori lady who was walking it, and she said it so beautifully.
Yeah.
I'm just feel like
Te Araroa.
Yeah, like I'm only like maybe like 25% white, but I felt like super white saying Te Araroa. Because of that, it's like super busy. But even then, look, it's worth doing it, and suddenly it ended the year on such a high. It's like up there for me with the Overland or South Coast Track as just one of those hikes that's just like so scenic and just a really enjoyable experience. And other than a few sections, I think it wasn't that hard. Like I'd say like South Coast Track or Frenchman's Cap is like a much harder walk. So I was like, oh, this is well within my capabilities. Whereas I think Justin and Peter found it like this is like quite confrontingly challenging. And met a lot of nice people on the track as well as you did with the Overland. And hopefully, I think that some of that will be friendships that will come to, like future hikes in the future. Yeah.
So I have to ask, while you're doing the Traverse Sabine, which member of the fellowship were you pretending to be as you're hiking along?
Good question, because Justin and Peter are both like obsessive Lord of the Rings fans, just as you are. That's a good question. I think I'd probably be Gandalf, since I was kind of leading the party. But I didn't get killed by a Balrog, so.
You didn't do the thing in The Hobbit where he just leaves them at the start of Mirkwood?
No.
Good luck. So that's pretty cool. And then, we'll talk about it next year as you then continued on your New Zealand adventures.
Yeah, so, like I did that, and I did the Greenstone Caples, and I'd say that Traverse Sabine is like one of the most like epically scenic trails, and then Greenstone Caples was like such just a chill hike. And it was what I wanted, because I was like, I could go do another hardcore hike, but I was like, why not just do something just really easy?
Yeah.
And just sleep for like hours into the day.
That's how I felt after doing the South Coast Track. I'm like, I could go and do Walls of Jerusalem or Frenchman's Cap, but I was like, no, I'll just have some chill time on Bruny Island and just decompress.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that's 2024 in the bag. Normally at this point we get into a Q&A, but we'll save that for next episode. But we do have our regular bits, and I've just realised I've forgotten. I released 2 books, or 2.1 books.
Oh yeah,
sorry, 1.1 books this year. So I've released Best Walks of South Coast WA, which was fun, and it was good reception to that one. And then I wrote, I think it was like 10% of Australia's 50 best multi-day walks.
Yeah.
So
1.1.
Yeah, 1.1 books.
Yeah.
That was a good achievement.
Yep. I also discovered that people don't give a shit about the Northern Territory when it comes to hiking. because I I released I released all the seasons that I shot in the previous year, and I was just shocked at how little care people had for the Northern Territory. And it's not like people just didn't care about the videos, because I released the Cape to Cape, I released Freycinet, and other hikes that I'd done, and they all had like good numbers, but people just did not care about the Northern Territory. And sort of comically, the one that I shot that was a last minute thing, which was Stanley Chasm. Like, I just shot that. I was like, oh, well, the hike I really wanted to do, which was Kings Canyon, but we couldn't do it because we got diverted around. And I ended up just shooting. I was like, oh, well, I got to shoot something else. I shot Stanley Chasm and Simpsons Gap. And that ended up being the most popular video. Like, it's had the most views by far of all of those. And it's just sort of perplexing to me that that's the case. Yeah. I will not be doing another Northern Territory series other than the Larapinta in the future, because people just don't care.
I don't know what it is. Because people, when they like talk to you and find out who you are, they're like, oh yeah, like, what are you doing in the future? Like, when are you doing the Larapinta? Like, that seems to be the main Northern Territory discussion point.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether it's like people will only visit trails there because they're on holiday, and sometimes it's so remote that they don't do the research before, and they just kind of rely on, I'm going to a place like Nipmuc. They'll go to the visitor centre, and that's where they'll get their information from, and look at the board and say, oh, these are the trails I'm going to do, rather than, I don't know, going to a website like you might do. But yeah, like, my website traffic for the Northern Territory is minimal. Like, considering how many trails I have on there compared to like the Coral Coast or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like a very small part of the year where I might get maybe double digits on one of the trails for a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very rarely that I'll get a spike in Northern Territory views.
Which is a shame, because I think you and I agree that the walking in Northern Territory is pretty good.
It is, but it's also kind of geared to experienced hikers, because if you're going to hike in the heat, you need to be prepared. Like, you can't just, oh yeah, I'll do a 12-kilometre trail even though it's, 30 degrees in the middle of winter.
Yeah, that's true. I was really sad that, like, Chain of Ponds, which I think was like one of the best hikes I've done, day walks, just people didn't care. I was like, yeah, but it is what it is, and I think the reason the Larapinta does well is that the Larapinta's sort of on that through hiking circuit, so you get those people who are like Americans or Europeans doing it, and it's like I think in the world probably the arid climate multi-day through hike, and it's a shame that there's not that interest on a day hike level.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of understandable, but at the same time, it's a little bit baffling.
Yeah.
But on that point, like, yeah, I've definitely noticed this year, like, social media engagement is just, like, tanked. I'm not sure whether it's just people don't follow the same way they used to, or it's just an algorithm thing, but, like, I kind of find it funny that I'll post something on Facebook and Instagram, and, like, when I had, a tenth of the followers that I do now, I'd get the same kind of response.
Oh yeah,
and it's just it's quite funny and perplexing.
I think a thing here that was sort of like crazy here was I posted photos of my native garden, and it had like I think 1,000 likes, and it's a struggle to get that level of interest. To get 1,000 likes on a video would be like a real challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just like a trail, I'm like, oh yeah, like heaps of people will enjoy this, and like I look at the website stats and like 5 people looked at it. I'm like, 7 people looked at some obscure trail like the Carmel Walk or something the same day.
Yeah, and it's I think it's very much a case that I'm realizing very much that there's places that people care about. There's places that people do not care about. You know, like my Freycinet video, which was a very much opportunistic thing. Like I just happened to be able to go to Tasmania. I was like, yeah, I'll just do this. Was like one of the most popular things I shot last year.
Yeah. But on that same token, like website traffic in 2024 was like ridiculous. It was like 180% or something increase over the previous year. And trails like Cradle Mountain, like I would have thought I would have like not done well at all for that based on SEO, because there's so much out there. Like Cradle Mountain is the hike in Tasmania if you're an international tourist.
Yeah.
But I think I rank well in like Cradle Mountain summit hike, because I'm getting, you know, especially this time of year when it's peak tourist season, like 100+ views a day.
Yeah.
And for some reason, my Wineglass Bay loop, speaking of Freycinet, that was in the doldrums. Like I was ranked 20th or something for ages and ages. And now, again, I'm getting like 100+ views a day on a walk I did in 2018 or 2019. It's just funny the way the internet works sometimes. Whereas like, you're like, yeah, this is great. Everyone, like my Overland series, like everyone will love this. No.
No one cares.
But yeah. So moving on, so we'll do our typical roundup questions for the year. So we'll start off with best trail for the year for you.
Oh, Traverse Sabine, like no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Any particular day though? Because I'm going to say a day on a trail, not
of course. Trail. Day 3. Yeah, definitely day 3, because day 3 you go over the Traverse Saddle. And that was outstanding. You know, like, I think anytime you go over a mountain pass, sort of is going to be great. And this was fantastic. Very tricky going downhill, because it was like when we did the South Coast track and we did the Ironbounds, you know, that the descent was the trickier part, I'd say. And again, this was the case that the descent was way worse than the ascent. But the thing that was really hard about it was, unlike the Ironbounds, it was just really rooty rainforest, this was just like really slippery. Like the descent is so steep. I think I'd say 75% of the people I saw fell over at some point. And it was just a real challenge for that reason. But the scenery as you cross the saddle was so good. And then when you got to the bottom, you got to the Sabine River, and that was also spectacular. So yeah, it was a really good day. How about you?
I'm going to go day 3 on the Overland. So Lake Windermere to New Pelion. So waking up at Lake Windermere, fantastic spot. The new hut has this really cool deck, so you look out over I think it's one of the peaks. I don't think it's Barn Bluff, but it might be Barn Bluff. And because it was such it's middle of summer, so you've got heaps of daylight hours. Everyone was out on the deck and chatting and everything.
Yeah.
And then that first part of the day, hiking up to those moors where you've got the mountain views everywhere. It was just one of those moments where you're just like looking around and being like, I'm really lucky to be able to do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the weather was fantastic. And then you started descending down towards Forth River and through the Frog Flats and the beautiful rainforest. And then getting to New Pelion, like that's just an epic spot. Like amazing views as well. And then a couple of the guys in the group were going to go do Mount Oakley. And I hadn't originally planned for that. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Let's seize the opportunity. So we did that, and then it rained on the way down. But then that was also the afternoon and the evening where like the group kind of coalesced into like a really fun social group.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting out on the helipad with everyone. And from that moment on, I just called it the Helipad Social Club, because that's where we all seemed to congregate.
Yeah.
And it was, like weird thing. Like you've known these people for like 2 days and yet the conversations are free flowing.
Yeah.
You just feel really good. Like, you know, when you're just in normal society and someone does something, you're like, I hate you, or it annoys me, like on the bus or like in a cafe or like wherever.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas this was just like, I'm here, I'm open to the experience, I want to be social, and it was just good fun getting to know everyone.
Yeah, I feel like that I had the same experience that at New Pelion, because the previous night was the Angry German Man night. That a lot of people had sympathy for us because of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that the sort of relationships that people sort of coalesced and became stronger.
And this night, because it was like peak tourist season, a lot of people were coming off the River track.
Yeah.
So there was like 50 odd people at New Pelion, which is not set up for that amount of people. And we were all kind of like, this is our people, like this is our group, and we kind of hang together, and it was good fun watching all the people come off with like dozens of leeches hanging off each other. So that was best trail day for me of the year by far. Best hour on the trail.
Yeah, so again, I guess probably the hour heading across Trevor's Saddle was my favorite hour. It was particularly because, I think I build it up in my head. If you look at the elevation graph on the sort of tourism information, like the PDF, it looks terrible, but it was actually really easy. So having the easiness, and you got up to the saddle, and as we were climbing up, there was like a cloud inversion where the hut was, so you saw that in the valley.
Nice.
You saw these like mountains, like there's like really like the, classically jagged mountain peak at the top that you get to stand next to. All of those things were just marvelous, and the fact that we got there, we're like, oh, this is not that hard. It was fantastic hour.
Yeah.
How about you?
And let's pick a couple. What's your best like non-Traverse Spine one?
If I think about it, there was times where I walked with Miles, and just walking, he and I by ourselves. I'm thinking immediately back to doing the Gloucester to Cascades hike with him, and just him and I talking and telling him about stuff, and him just being his like goofball funny self, and that was just really lovely. Like I think that sometimes there were some sections that were burnt, but having Miles there with me and having those sort of bonding moments was really good. And then if I think of other things, like on the Warren River Loop, there was this weird bird. I don't know what was going on. Like it was like the most bizarre creature that I saw in the water. It was like some water bird. Maybe there were two water birds mating, but I don't know what it was. The weirdest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. And there was like this kid there, and he and I were like, what the hell is this? That, and then walking along the Warren River was really, and that was a different experience. That was by myself. So, I certainly had really great experiences sort of walking with Miles or walking with other people, and then having this solo experience as well, which I think both of them have really great value.
The weird birds weren't those weird bush turkeys we saw on the Kep track, were they?
No, I will have a video of the weird birds, and if someone knows, please comment.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were plenty of moments as well, just by myself in huts. Like on the Cayandra de Kosciuszko hike, just being by myself in a hut. In the rain, and that was really fantastic. So I think I've certainly had, I think what's been really interesting is really great experiences just by myself, and then also great experiences with other people. How about you?
So I'll go 1 hour from the Overland, which there were many, like they're still fresh in my memory, even though it was over a year ago. But the one I'll pick is leaving Narcissus Hut. Mm-hmm. And then walking around the edge towards Echo Point. And because we'd had such nice weather, that meant the sun was out quite a lot. So the waterfall day was very brightly lit. So it wasn't great for photos. But then it clouded over as we were leaving Narcissus. And just walking through that rainforest And I remember telling Alice, one of the people in our group, I'm like, this is what I was looking forward to on the waterfall day in the rainforest. And it was just like perfect lighting. Everything was evenly lit. It just looked like a magical forest. And that whole section leading into Echo Point was just amazing.
Yeah. I think it's quite underrated, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's not, if you don't like, especially if you've been spoiled with the new huts, it's a bit of a change to be like, you're either in that dank Echo Point hut or you're in your tent somewhere. But that campsite's amazing.
I think as well, I love the fact that Echo Point is an old hut, because I think it's like the hardy few who don't catch the ferry get to experience something that someone in the 60s might have experienced on the trail.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that difficult. Like,
Yeah.
the beach is amazing. Like, I was quite happy to pitch my tent there because I knew soft ground. That was fantastic. I mean, there's no real, especially in the middle of summer, no real running water around that area. So you're drinking out of the lake that everyone's swimming in, but like, you're fine. Like, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, fantastic spot. And we got this really weird 5 minutes of just bright purple and pink skies. And like, I was looking at my phone. I'm like, they weren't real. And my camera, I'm like, it was real. And then like, we met up with some people who had stayed at Narcissus and got the ferry back, and they're like, yeah, did you see that like last night? I was like, yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of like WA walking, I don't know, I've got a few, but I'll pick an out of the way one, which is doing the Uad Ponar Trail in Lasua National Park.
Yeah, that's a good trail.
So I did this on my way back from Geraldton after doing Kalbarri and the Kennedy Range. And I don't know, having done the Yonga Trail, I was like, you know, pretty good scenery. Like, this is probably as good as it gets. But the Uad Pona, like, those flat top mesas, I was like, this is epic.
Yeah, I actually think it's smaller, but I think it's better scenery.
Yeah, like, you get onto the top of that, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I just couldn't stop taking photos. And even though the interior of the park had been quite badly burnt, this area was still kind of fine. And like, you know, you get ocean views, and then you get this like low scrub, but then you get those white gums as well. It's one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, I could quite happily walk this trail quite a lot and still, you know, find enjoyment out of it.
I feel like the team there have built trails that are actually interesting, and also are trails that are they're built because the scenery is good, not because of like some economic reason of like, oh, we need Collie to have something if mining doesn't happen anymore.
Well, the thing is, like, one of my sister's friends married one of the rangers up there. I think he's a ranger. He works for DBCA anyway, and he was quite interested in our opinions on the Yonga Trail, and we did that podcast.
Yeah.
And like, he took it on board, but I think he came away with it like, yes, like, I'm proud that I was part of that. They've done a good job, kind of thing. Cool. So yeah, it's good to see such like a not well visited area still put the effort in.
Yeah,
I think that's what's probably missing in a lot of WA parks.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. And I've added one category in this year as kind of like a gauge and to try and prove a point. But what was your worst trail of 2024?
What was my worst trail? Gee. That's a great question.
And Donovan may edit this out, but there's a long pause here, and that was my point, is it's hard to think of a bad trail. Like, you can think of a bad trail in like a technical term, but did you have a bad experience on a bad trail?
Well, I'm specifically not walking bad, like trails that I know are going to be bad, or that I think are going to be bad, but no, you're right. Like, I can't think of anything that's specifically terrible. Yeah, I can't think of it. How about you? Can you think of something?
Like, looking through my spreadsheet of everything I did in the year, the worst one, if you were to look at it objectively, would be Majestic Heights in 2J. Because it was just a walk on vehicle tracks to the top of a hill where you didn't get views and then you walked back. But I was so happy to be in the cold and the rain, and there was some beautiful Wandoo along there that I didn't care, and there was some nice views along the trail, just not from the summit.
Mm.
But that's still better than sitting at home doing nothing.
Yeah. I think in previous years, had you asked me this, I would have had an answer. Particularly when I did some of the Shire of Kalamunda walks, where I'm like, this sucks. But there was nothing this year.
Even then, like, it's still better to be out than not. Like the Channel 10 walk, I still like look back at that. I'm like, yeah, that was
funny.
worthy to do that.
I take your point, but I think that's more like I find it more funny, like because it's like this is so bad, but like as a hiking experience, yeah, I think I've made a conscious decision not to do stuff that I would find crap. So.
I mean, on that point, like last year, I would have said yes, worst trail, Wilman-Bilya, because I'm investing so much time to do a 4-day hike, and it's rubbish. But like a day hike, there's not many that I would say are rubbish. And yeah, you could probably visit a trail. Like had I have done some of my Wongan Hill trails in the middle of summer or the start of autumn, I probably would have gone, yeah, not great.
Yeah.
But I deliberately picked to visit those during wildflower season when they were much, much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say, look, part of my decision to not just, like, I guess, go for the encyclopedia approach was to not do boring stuff. So I'd say I haven't done anything that was terrible in the last year. It's an interesting point you're making, Mark. Very interesting.
Yeah. Actually, I've got another trail that was Mianara Hill in Kalbarri.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been... Yeah.
I was expecting a bit more from that. But again, it's like expectations versus... Or like hype versus reality.
Yep.
Like that was... I was expecting more natural bushland and that's not. But it was still like nice views and it was good to get out in the morning there. All right, 2025 plans. I guess we're already almost 10% through.
I hate saying stuff because, you know, like, the amount of times I've said something here and then been screwed over by planning falling apart. But I will talk about it. So in July, I am doing a family trip. We're going to do some... New South Wales has built all these trails, so we might as well experience it. So we're going to do the Murrumarang South Coast Walk, and we're also going to do the Grand Clifftop Walk in the Blue Mountains and the Grand Canyon in the Blue Mountains, which I've done before. It was actually like one of the first posts I wrote on The Long Ways Better. But the reason we're doing that is that there's a book that Miles loves called Let's Go to the Bush. And the book is clearly the Grand Canyon. Like, they go down into the valley and then they go up. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do in July. And then in September, I'm going to do the Mundabiddi, which you're going to join me for some of it, maybe.
We'll see. Training's going well, but I'll see if I can keep that up over the winter.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to do the Mundabiddi, which, like... That was actually the whole reason I did the Long Ways Better videos, because I was like, this is too hard to do as a photo thing. I want to do it all the way through because like stopping and starting with a video, like if I have a drone following me, it would be like way easier. So this will be, this finally get to do it. And that should be fun. So I've got a rough itinerary sort of sorted. And then at the end of the year, I'm planning on doing the Great Ocean Walk. You know, I'm looking for something a bit low-key this year, because next year is my 40th, and I'm going for hardcore crazy next year. And the other thing is I'm going to Tasmania for work quite a few times, so I'm doing a few things, and I'm planning on trying to do the Free Capes track, which will be interesting because it'll be the complete opposite to your experience of the Three Capes.
Yeah. I mean, you can still bring your own wine. You're just not going to get meals cooked for you.
Yeah, well, I've got some single malt whiskey that I'll be bringing in. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. How about you?
Well, I am turning 40 this year, so I still haven't decided what I wanted to do. The original plan was to go to Hawaii, but I kind of don't want to go to America anymore, given the new government that's been installed and everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I might look elsewhere in the South Pacific. Like Fiji is a cool place that I would like to go to do snorkeling and diving and hiking.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to get into gear about that. There's a Kangaroo Island trip planning around Easter. Not to do the Wilderness Trail because, yeah, we left it a bit late to book into that. And then I don't know. Like I've just got lots of plans. Depending on what happens with the Kingdom of Pi, trying to find leave to do that because I actually want to be part of doing the build for that as much as I can.
Yep.
And then, yeah, bits and pieces. So nothing planned at the moment in terms of like big trips, but I'll endeavour to do my best in terms of training to join you on the Mundabitty because I will be riding my acoustic bike whereas you'll be on your e-bike. And the distances you want to travel,
They're quite hard on an acoustic bike.
they are, but like if I'm fit enough, I should be able to do them easily enough. I just might not be doing it at the pace you'll be doing them.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, maybe the Great Ocean Walk with you, depending on
Hopefully.
everything else.
Because otherwise it'll be a bit lonely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, my family's already abandoning, well, not abandoning, they're going on a cruise as a family, and Karis and I have decided not to do that because cruising isn't really our thing, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. And I think our New Year's resolution is to this year be a bit more active. I think we've got enough things to talk about. You know, we have like a board here with like future episodes written down on, so
We do. Oh, and I also have 2 books to write this year as well, so I've got to get those done as well. Yeah, but hopefully we'll be a bit more active. I reckon if we investigate doing things where we can interview people and have it recorded online, will make things a lot easier.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think certainly, you know, I think the post-COVID funk that sort of led to the slowness and us like sort of really cutting back has sort of finished.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, I've sort of come into like a nice sort of equilibrium as well with like being a parent. So yeah, we'll certainly be a bit more active in 2025 and onwards.
I mean, we've said that the last couple of years. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, but I actually do feel it now. You know, like I feel like being able to go out and do some of the hikes that I've done. You know, like I felt in the past that we didn't have enough things to talk about that were new, and particularly, you know, I think I've always had the aspiration that we reach an audience. We're not just the WA guys. Like, you know, we do other things as well.
Nah, I don't know. I've come to terms with the fact that like most of our audience is WA. Like the last couple of episodes have reached a bit more people because they're about East Coast topics.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it's kind of fun that we're the only ones really covering WA specific topics for like most of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think like Kevin, when I interviewed him, he sort of he said that you're WA hiking royalty, and I kind of slightly cringed at being the WA guy because I think I never wanted that for myself, and it's sort of what has, you know, I think that's what we sort of know now, and I think that you've like really shined at being the WA guy, but that's not what I wanted for myself.
Yeah, I don't know. I've come to terms with the fact that like this is probably all I'm going to be is like just the everyday kind of hiker. Like I have no aspirations.
I don't think you're just the everyday hiker, Mark. Like
no, but like I have no aspirations to go do the PCT or you know the Appalachian Trail or stuff like that. Like I know what I want in life, and I'm quite happy to, you know, see the devil in the detail, as I like to say.
So I agree with you in the sense that I have no aspiration to do the long trails. But that's partly because if you ask me, like 3,000 kilometers of outstanding scenery versus 3,000 of compromise because like it has to be, if it's that long, I will say I don't want any compromise, and that governs my sort of decision making. But I think you'll see in the coming years that I'm probably not going to do that. Like I will do something in WA just because it's handy, but it's not what I want to do hiking wise. Like I'd say Tasmania, New South Wales, and Australia have a lot more pull for me. Queensland has a lot more pull for me. New Zealand has a lot more pull for me in terms of what I want to get out of a hike. And I wish that wasn't the case. But until WA really starts thinking seriously about building better trails, that's it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening
No.
in the short term. But I'm kind of the same in like, there's not much left in WA really to do, so I'll probably be looking elsewhere. It's just where and when as well.
And like I said, I asked many people when I was there who were Australians. I was like, "Are you from New South Wales?" And when they said no, I was like, I would never say this to a New South Welshman, but I actually think you've got pretty good hiking over there. Because like I can think of so many areas there which have really good trails, and it just frustrates me that WA could be on that level. Because we have, when you ask people who go on the big lap, and they'll say like Tasmania and WA are probably their favorites because they're so different, and we just don't highlight the great stuff here, and that just frustrates me so much because I'd love to say that, I was going to spend every holiday doing a hike here. But it's really, I think more and more, I'm thinking the East Coast and New Zealand will be where I'll be hiking.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it'll be like 50-50 for me. Because I'd love to go explore new places, but I want to do them justice. Like, if I was going to go to New South Wales, I'd want to spend at least a month, 6 weeks, just travelling around doing all the cool hikes.
Yeah.
But I still look forward to, like, WA trips. I'd love to spend, like, a week in the Stirling Range just doing 1 or 2 hikes a day, going out looking for wildflowers and orchids in different spots, and just like slowing down and enjoying the area. And like every time I go down to Albany, Denmark, it never gets old, and that's what I enjoy about WA is it's good quality scenery and the hiking trails are good, but I don't think we're going to get much new in the next few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you feel differently or you want differently for the state, feel free to write to your local minister and tell them how much you love trails and how much they should invest.
Yeah.
Especially given it's an election year.
Yeah, and not just in Collie.
Yeah. Although I am excited to check out the new mountain bike touring trails around Walpole.
So am I.
They do look quite interesting. And again, like they've built them, but like, have you heard anything about them? Not really.
Nope. Yeah.
So hopefully we can do that. If I do them under Biddy, we can
get some time
there on the way back, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode or any other episode of Real Trail Talk, then please rate us on whatever platform you're currently listening to us on. Ratings really help us to reach an audience, especially those who are looking to learn about the outdoors in Western Australia and Australia in general. If you had any questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can email us at realtrailtalk@gmail.com or contact us through our social media channels. Thanks again, and stay tuned for our next episode.